The Galactic Council chamber was silent. 12 species sat around the great table, their representatives watching the human delegation with cold eyes. Admiral Una stood alone before them, her uniform pressed and perfect, and her hands shaking slightly at her sides. She knew what they were about to ask. She had known since the moment she received the summons. "The Vyram Matriarch demands tribute," the council speaker announced. His crystalline body reflected the chamber lights like 1,000 tiny stars. "The Zara the Unburned has destroyed 17 colonies in the past month alone. Our fleets cannot stop her. Our weapons cannot pierce her ships." Una felt her heart drop into her stomach. The Vera were dragons. Not the small, mythical creatures from old Earth stories, but massive beings that lived among the stars. They breathed plasma. They flew through the void of space without ships. Their scales could withstand temperatures that would melt steel. And the Zara was the oldest and deadliest of them all. "What does she want?" Una asked, though she already knew the answer. "A sacrifice. A living offering." The speaker's voice held no emotion. "We have decided to give her a human." The words hung in the air like poison. Una wanted to scream. She wanted to flip the table and curse every species that sat around it. But she was a soldier, and soldiers followed orders, even when those orders broke their hearts. "Why a human?" she asked quietly. "Because you are expendable," another council member said. This one was a tall being with 4 arms and skin like bark. "Your species is small, weak. You have no great fleets, no powerful weapons. If we lose one of you, we lose nothing of value." Una clenched her fists so hard her nails cut into her palms. Humans had only been part of galactic society for 50 years. They were still learning, still growing. They had no powerful allies, no ancient treaties to protect them. The other species saw them as children playing at being adults. "We've already chosen the tribute," the speaker continued. A colony ship called Horizon's Dream was captured by the Zara's forces 3 weeks ago. Most of the passengers were killed, but there are survivors. Among them is an infant approximately 3 months old. His parents died protecting him during the attack. An infant. They wanted to give an infant to a monster. "You cannot be serious," Una said, her voice cracking. "He's just a baby. He has done nothing wrong. He has not even lived yet." "That is precisely why he is perfect," the speaker replied. "The Zara expects us to send warriors, soldiers, people who might pose a threat. An infant is harmless. It shows our complete submission, our total surrender to her power." Una looked around the chamber, hoping to find even one sympathetic face. She found none. The other species watched her with the same cold calculation they might use when deciding which tool to throw away. To them, this human baby was nothing more than a piece of meat to satisfy a hungry predator. "His name is Do-Wan," she said softly. "I read the passenger manifest. His mother was a teacher. His father was an engineer. They were moving to the outer colonies to start a new life. They wanted to give their son a better future. His name is irrelevant," the speaker said. "His parents are irrelevant. All that matters is that he serves his purpose. You will deliver him to the Zara's throne world within 3 days. This meeting is over." 2 days later, Una stood in the cargo bay of a small transport ship, looking down at the tiny pod that would carry Do-Wan to his death. The pod was simple. It had life support for 48 hours, a small heating system, and a transparent top so the Zara could see what was inside. Do-Wan lay in the pod, wrapped in a soft blue blanket. He was awake, his dark eyes looking up at Una with innocent curiosity. He had no idea what was happening. He did not understand that he had been abandoned by the galaxy. He only knew that there was a face above him, and faces sometimes meant food or warmth or comfort. Una reached down and touched his cheek. His skin was so soft, so warm, so alive. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I am so sorry. You deserve better than this. Your parents deserved better. Humanity deserves better." She wanted to take him. She wanted to run away with this child and hide him somewhere safe. But she knew there was nowhere to run. The council would find them. They would punish humanity for the disobedience. More people would die. She was trading one life for many. It was simple math. Cold, terrible math. "Maybe there is a miracle waiting for you," she said, though she did not believe it. "Maybe the universe will be kind. Maybe she will give you a quick death, at least." She programmed the pod's navigation system. The coordinates were simple. A single planet in a system that no other species dared to enter. The Zara's throne world. A place of ash and fire and death. As the pod launched into space, Una watched until it disappeared among the stars. Then she turned away and wept. The pod traveled for 2 days. Inside, Dahuan slept and woke and cried and slept again. The automatic systems fed him, changed him, kept him alive. He did not know that he was flying through the most dangerous space in the galaxy. He did not know that dragons had killed more beings than any plague or war in recorded history. On the morning of the 3rd day, the pod entered the atmosphere of the Zara's throne world. The sky above was orange and red, painted by the light of 3 suns. Below, mountains of black stone rose like teeth from the earth. Rivers of molten rock flowed between them, casting everything in a hellish glow. The pod landed in the courtyard of an obsidian palace. The structure was enormous, built for creatures that were larger than most buildings. Its walls were carved with images of dragons in flight, dragons in battle, dragons consuming stars. Within seconds, shapes began to move in the shadows. The Zara's children emerged. They were young by dragon standards, only a few centuries old, but each one was bigger than a shuttlecraft. Their scales were black and red and gold. Their eyes burned with inner fire. Their teeth were longer than swords. They circled the pod like sharks around wounded prey. Their nostrils flared as they smelled the creature inside. One of them laughed, a sound like grinding boulders. "A snack," she said. "The council sends us a snack." "It is so small," another said. "Barely a mouthful. Perhaps we should share it." "Oh, perhaps," a new voice said. "You should move aside." The young dragons froze. They turned toward the palace entrance, and their postures changed immediately. Where they had been confident and playful, they were now respectful and careful. They lowered their heads and stepped back from the pod. The Zara the Unburnt emerged from the shadows. She was ancient. Her scales had faded from bright red to deep crimson, marked with scars from 10,000 battles. Her wings were so large they could block out the sun. Her eyes were like twin furnaces, burning with intelligence and power that had seen empires rise and fall. She approached the pod slowly. Each step shook the ground. When she reached it, she lowered her massive head and looked through the transparent cover. Inside, baby Dohan was awake. He should have been terrified. Any creature with sense would have been. This was the monster that destroyed worlds. The nightmare that made other nightmares afraid. But Dohan was 3 months old. He did not understand fear yet. He only saw a face. A big face with bright eyes and warm breath that fogged the glass above him. He reached up his tiny hand and pressed it against the transparent cover, right where the Zara's eye watched him. The Zara went very still. She had eaten offerings before. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Warriors and priests and kings all sent to buy peace that she never sold. They had screamed. They had begged. They had cursed her name as she ended them. This creature did not scream. It did not beg. It looked at her with eyes full of wonder and reached out to touch her. Something deep inside the Zara shifted. A feeling she had not experienced in 10,000 years stirred in her chest. It was warm and strange, and frightening in ways the battle had never been. She opened the pod with one careful claw. The baby inside did not cry. He just kept looking at her, his hand still raised. "Mother," one of her children said nervously, "what are you doing?" The Zara did not answer. She reached into the pod with movements gentler than anyone would have believed possible. She lifted the baby out, blanket and all, and cradled him against her chest. His tiny heart beat against her scales. His breath was warm against her neck. He weighed almost nothing, this small thing that the galaxy had thrown away. "His name," Desara said slowly, her voice like distant thunder, "is Dowan." Her children stared at her in shock. "Mother?" one of them asked. "Are you not going to eat him?" The Zara turned her burning eyes on her child. For a moment, there was something dangerous in her gaze. Something that reminded everyone why she was feared. "He is mine now," she said simply. "And what is mine, I keep." She turned and walked back into her palace, carrying the human infant against her heart. Behind her, her children exchanged confused glances. The galaxy had sent them a sacrifice. Instead, their mother had claimed a sundot in the chamber of the Galactic Council. Far across the stars, the representatives congratulated themselves on solving the Visara problem. They assumed the baby was already dead. They had moved on to other matters, other concerns. They had no idea that in a palace of black stone, on a world of fire and ash, the deadliest creature in the universe was learning a new word .mother. And she found that she liked it. 20 years passed on the Tsar's throne world. The three suns rose and set thousands of times. Seasons changed, though on a world of fire, all seasons felt the same. And in the Obsidian Palace, something impossible grew. Dohan was no longer a baby. He was a young man now, tall and lean with black hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that had seen wonders no other human had witnessed. His skin was darker than it might have been if he had grown up under softer suns. His hands were calloused from years of climbing dragon scales and gripping dragon spines. His voice had deepened, and when he spoke, he did so with the careful precision of someone who had learned to think before making sounds. He woke every morning in a chamber carved from volcanic glass. His bed was a nest of fire-resistant fabrics, gifts from his mother over the years. The walls around him were decorated with things he had made himself. Star maps drawn on dragonhide, weapons forged in plasma breath, tools designed for hands much smaller than those of his siblings. On this particular morning, he woke to the sound of scratching at his door, a door that was 50 feet tall and weighed more than a small ship. "Dowan," a voice called from outside. "Wake up, little brother. Mother wants to see you." He smiled. That voice belonged to Volcara, his closest sibling among the dragons. She was young by their standards, only 400 years old, which made her the closest to his age in spirit, if not in actual time. "I am awake," he called back. "Give me a moment." He dressed quickly in clothes he had designed himself. Normal human clothes would have burned away in the heat of this world within minutes. His clothes were made from scales that his siblings had shed over the years, woven together with wire made from the bones of space creatures. They were ugly by human fashion standards, probably, but they worked. He opened the door to find Volcara waiting for him. She was smaller than the Sara, of course. All the children were. But she was still massive, her body longer than a building, her wings folded against her back like great black sails. Her eyes were golden, and they watched him with affection that would have surprised anyone who thought dragons incapable of such feelings. "You slept late again," she said. "I was working late," he replied. "I almost finished the new navigation system." Volcara lowered her head so they were at eye level. "You work too hard, little brother. You are trying to match us. but you do not need to. You are already impressive for a creature of meat and water." Doan laughed. This was how they talked to him. Creature of meat and water. Soft one. Little flame. Terms that might have seemed insulting but were spoken with love. He had learned long ago that dragons did not express affection the way humans did. They did not hug or kiss. But they protected. They provided. They stayed. That was enough. They walked together through the palace halls. Dragons passed them, some old, some young, all of them nodding respectfully to Doan. This had not always been the case. In his early years, many had looked at him with hunger or confusion. A few had even tried to eat him when the Tsar was not watching. Those dragons were no longer alive. The Tsar had made examples of them after that. No one questioned Doan's place in the family. The throne room of the palace was a vast cavern deep underground, where the heat was strongest. Rivers of lava flowed along channels in the floor. The ceiling was so high that clouds formed inside the chamber. Thin wisps of steam that drifted like ghosts. The Tsar waited on her throne, which was really just a raised platform of stone where she could coil her massive body. Even resting, she was terrifying. Her presence filled the room like a physical weight. Her eyes tracked Doan as he approached, and though her face could not smile, he knew she was pleased to see him. "My son," she said, her voice rumbling through the chamber. "Come closer." Doan walked to the base of her platform and looked up at her. Even after 20 years, the sight of her still amazed him. She was the most powerful being he had ever known. She could destroy stars. She had ended civilizations. And yet, when she looked at him, her eyes softened in a way they did for no one else. "You wanted to see me, Mother?" he asked. "Yes." She shifted her body, and something clattered to the stone floor near his feet. It was a data crystal, small enough to fit in his palm. "This arrived this morning, from Council Space." Doan picked up the crystal. His heart beat faster. Council Space. He had not heard anything from the wider galaxy in years. The Tsar kept her territory isolated, and few ships dared to enter. "What is it?" he asked. "A message." "From humans?" The word hit him harder than he expected. Humans, his own species. People who looked like him, spoke like him, died like him. He had not seen another human since he was 3 months old. Sometimes he forgot that he was one of them at all. "May I watch it?" he asked. "That is why I called you here." He activated the crystal. A holographic image appeared in the air before him. It showed a woman in a military uniform, her hair gray but her eyes sharp. She was speaking directly to the camera, her voice tight with emotion. "My name is Admiral Una of United Human Fleet," she said. "I am recording this message for the archives. 20 years ago, I was ordered to send an infant named Doan to the dragon Matriarch Desara as a tribute. I followed those orders. It is the greatest regret of my life. I have spent 2 decades wondering what happened to that child. If anyone ever finds this message, if by some miracle Doan survived, I want him to know that I am sorry. I am so deeply, terribly sorry. You deserved better. Humanity should have protected you. We failed." The recording ended. Doan stood in silence, the crystal warm in his hand. He had always known the truth of his arrival. The Tsar had never hidden it from him. She had told him about the pod, about the Council's decision, about the galaxy's expectation that he would die. She had told him because she believed in truth, even when truth was painful. But hearing it from a human voice, from someone who had been there, who had held him before sending him away, that was different. "She feels guilt," the Tsar observed. "She carries it like a weight." "Yes," Doan said quietly. "Do you hate her?" He thought about the question carefully. Hate was something dragons understood well. They held grudges for thousands of years. They remembered every wrong done to them and repaid it 100 times over. "No," he finally said. She was given an impossible choice. She chose to save many by sacrificing one. It was wrong, but I do not think she is evil. I think she is just human. The Zara made a sound that might have been approval. You have grown wise, my son. Wiser than many who have lived 10 times your years. Valkara, who had been listening from the entrance, spoke up. Mother, will you tell him the other news? Dowan looked between his sister and his mother. What other news? The Zara's eyes flickered with something dark. Something dangerous. The Galactic Council has been discussing humanity again. They have decided that your species is too troublesome. Too unpredictable. They are planning something called a final solution. The words sent ice through Dowan's veins, despite the heat of the chamber. What does that mean? He asked, though he already knew. Extinction, the Zara said simply. They intend to destroy every human world. Kill every human being. Erase your species from existence. Dowan's hands began to shake. He had never met another human. He did not know their worlds or their cultures or their ways. But they were his people, his blood, the only others in the entire universe who shared his form and his nature, and the galaxy wanted them dead. When? He asked. The first strikes are planned within months. They are building their fleets now. Dowan turned away, his mind racing. For 20 years, he had lived among dragons. He had learned to think like them, fight like them, build like them. He had adapted to a world that should have killed him 1,000 times over. But he had never forgotten what he was, a human, soft and small and short-lived. A creature of meat and water, but also something else. Something the galaxy had forgotten. Humans were survivors. They adapted. They endured. They fought against odds that should have crushed them, and sometimes, against all reason, they won. I need to go to them, he said. The chamber went silent. Valkara made a worried sound. Even the rivers of lava seemed to slow. The Zara looked at her son for a long moment. You wish to leave? I wish to help them. They are my people, Mother. They are being slaughtered because the galaxy thinks they are weak. But they are not weak. They just need someone to stand with them. And you believe you can be that person? Dowan met her burning gaze without flinching. I am the son of the Zara, the Unburnt. I am the brother of dragons. I have lived on a world of fire for 20 years. If I cannot help them, then no one can. The Zara was silent for a very long time. The other dragons in the room watched nervously, unsure what their mother would do. She had claimed this human as her own. She had killed to protect him. Would she let him go now, to a place where she could not keep him safe? Finally, she spoke. You are my son, she said. My child, even though you did not come from my body. I raised you. I taught you. I loved you in ways I did not think I was capable of loving anything. She lowered her head until her great eye was level with his face. If you go to them, I go with you. If they threaten you, I burn them. If the council thinks it can touch my child, I will show them why the galaxy learned to fear my name. Dowan felt tears forming in his eyes. Dragons did not cry, but humans did. Commander Yunji had served in the United Human Fleet for 30 years. She had seen battles and disasters and moments of triumph that most people only read about in history books. But nothing in her long career had prepared her for the message that appeared on her screen that Tuesday morning. It came from deep space. From a region marked on every human star map with a simple warning, do not enter. The Vira territories. Dragon space. A place where human ships went to die. The message was short. Just coordinates, a time stamp for 3 days from now, and a single sentence in perfect standard language. I am coming home. Yunji stared at the words for a long time. Her coffee grew cold beside her. Her officers waited nervously for orders. She said nothing. It had to be a trick. Some kind of trap designed to lure human ships into Vera space where they could be destroyed. The dragons were clever. They had used deception before. This was just another game. But something about the message bothered her. The phrasing, the simplicity, the use of the word home. Run the signal through analysis, she ordered. Find out everything you can about where it came from. The analysis took an hour. When the results appeared, Yunji felt the blood drain from her face. The signal had originated from a ship registered to the Sara, the Unburnt herself, the deadliest dragon in the galaxy, the monster who had destroyed more human colonies than any other creature alive. And the message had been sent using human communication codes that had not been used in over 20 years. Codes from the colony ship, Horizon's Dream. Yunji was old enough to remember that ship. She had been a junior officer when it was captured. She remembered the news reports, the horror, the Council's decision to send the human infant as tribute, the shame that humanity had felt, unable to protect even the smallest of its children. No one had ever expected that child to live. Prepare a ship, Yunji said, her voice barely above a whisper. I am going to those coordinates myself. Her officers protested. It was dangerous. It was likely a trap. The fleet could not afford to lose its commander to a foolish risk. Yunji silenced them with a look. That message might be from a human who has been alone among dragons for 20 years, she said. If there is even a small chance that he is alive, I will not abandon him. We have already failed him once. We will not fail him again. 3 days later, Yunji's ship arrived at the coordinates. It was a point in empty space, far from any star or planet. Nothing but darkness in every direction. For 2 hours, nothing happened. Yunji waited on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the view screen, her heart beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. Then the sensor screamed. A hole tore open in space itself. Not a normal jump gate or warp tunnel, but something else. Something organic. The fabric of reality split apart, and through the gap came a ship unlike anything Yunji had ever seen. It was alive. That was the only word for it. The hull was made of scales, black and red, shifting and moving like the skin of a breathing creature. Wings extended from its sides, impossible and beautiful, catching light from stars that were light years away. Its eyes, and it had eyes, burned with inner fire. A Vera brood vessel. One of the Sara's own children. Yunji expected to die. Every instinct told her to run, to fight, to do something other than sit frozen in her chair. But she did not move. She had come here for a reason. The brood vessel approached slowly. It stopped a safe distance from Yunji's ship, and its mouth opened. Not to attack, to release something. A smaller vessel emerged. This one was different. It was a hybrid, combining the organic beauty of Vera technology with the angular efficiency of human engineering. It moved with impossible grace, dancing through space toward Yunji's ship. The vessel docked. Airlocks connected. Pressure equalized. And then Yunji's door opened, and a young man stepped onto her bridge. He was human. There was no doubt about that. His features, his proportions, his movements, all human. But there was something else about him too. Something in the way he held himself. Something in his eyes that had seen things no other human had ever witnessed. He wore clothes made from dragon scales. His hands were scarred from years of working with materials too hot for normal skin. His expression was calm, controlled, patient in a way that spoke of a lifetime among creatures who measured time in centuries. "My name is Dohan," he said. "I believe you have been looking for me." Yunji could not speak. She could only stare at this impossible person who should have been dead 20 years ago. The tribute child. The sacrifice. The baby that the galaxy had thrown away. He was alive. He was here, and behind him, waiting in the void, was one of the Sara's own children. How? Yunji finally managed. How are you alive? Dowan smiled slightly. It was a strange smile, like he was amused by a joke that only he understood. The Zara did not kill me, he said. She raised me. She is my mother now. Her children are my siblings. For 20 years, I have lived among dragons. I have learned their ways, their technology, their power. He stepped closer, and Yunji noticed the seriousness returning to his face. I have also learned that the Galactic Council is planning to destroy humanity. They think you are weak, expendable. They believe they can wipe out your entire species without consequences. Yunji nodded slowly. She had heard the rumors, the secret meetings, the preparations for war. Humanity knew what was coming. They just did not know how to stop it. We cannot fight them, she said. We do not have the ships. We do not have the weapons. If they come for us, we will die. No, Dowan said firmly. You will not, because you are not alone anymore. He gestured toward the view screen, where the massive brood vessel waited. That is my sister Velkara. She has come to stand with you. And she is not the only one. As if on cue, more holes tore open in space. More organic shapes emerged. Dragons, real dragons. 5 of them. Then 10. Then more. Ships that were also creatures, ancient and terrible and beautiful beyond words. And finally, through the largest tier of all, came the Sara herself. Yunji had seen images of the dragon Matriarch before. Everyone had. But images could not capture the reality. She was vast. Her scales were the color of dried blood. Her wings could block out stars. Her eyes burned with intelligence and fury that had accumulated over 10,000 years of existence. She was the nightmare that made other nightmares afraid. And she was here, in human space, looking directly at Yunji's ship with something that might have been curiosity. Dowan's voice cut through Yunji's shock. 20 years ago, the galaxy sent me to die. They threw me away because they thought I was worthless. Because they thought humanity was worthless. He moved to stand directly in front of her, and she saw that his eyes were wet with emotion. I am here to prove them wrong. I am here to tell you that humanity is not alone. The Vira stand with you. My mother stands with you. And anyone who comes for human worlds will have to go through us first. Yunji looked from Dowan to the view screen, where the Sara's massive form waited. The deadliest dragon in existence. The terror of the galaxy. Protecting humans. Why? She asked. Why would she do this for us? Dowan's expression softened. Because I asked her to. And because, in her own way, she loves me. I am her son. My people are her people now. And what is hers, she keeps. For the first time in years, Yu felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. What do you need from us? She asked. Take me to your leaders. Let me speak to humanity. Let me tell them that they are no longer alone. That they have allies who will fight beside them and burn any who threaten them. He paused, and his voice dropped lower. And let me deliver a message to the Galactic Council. A message they will never forget. Yunji looked at this young man who had survived the impossible, who had been raised by monsters and emerged as something new. Something powerful. What message? She asked. Dowan turned to look at the dragons waiting in space. His family. His protectors. The creatures who had given him everything when the galaxy had given him nothing. That humanity is no longer easy prey, he said. That we have teeth now. And that anyone who thinks they can destroy us is about to learn what it means to face the fire. Outside the ship, the Sara shifted her wings. The movement sent ripples through space itself. She was watching, waiting, ready to defend her child. and his people against anything the universe might throw at them. The Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake 20 years ago. They had thrown away a human infant, thinking he would be consumed by a monster. Instead, they had given that monster a reason to protect humanity, and the galaxy was about to discover just how dangerous that mistake had been. The Council's extermination fleet gathered near New Sol, humanity's largest remaining world. 300 warships from 12 different species, armed with weapons designed to crack planets open like eggs. Their mission was simple: total destruction, complete extinction. The end of humanity. Grand Admiral Torvik commanded the fleet from his crystalline flagship, the Light of Judgment. He was a veteran of 100 campaigns, a being who had crushed rebellions and conquered civilizations for the greater glory of the Galactic Council. He had no doubt about the outcome of this battle. Humans were weak, their ships were outdated, their population was small. This would not be a war. It would be an execution. "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, "the human defense fleet is moving to intercept." 47 vessels. Torvik made a sound that served as laughter among his species. 47 ships against 300. The humans were brave. He would give them that. Foolish, but brave. "Order all ships to prepare for engagement," he commanded. "Let us end this quickly." The Council fleet moved forward in perfect formation, their weapons charged with terrible energy. Their crews anticipated an easy victory. They were not prepared for what came next. The first sign was a tremor in space itself, a vibration that made instruments flicker and sensors go wild. Torvik frowned at his displays, uncertain what he was seeing. "What is that?" he demanded before anyone could answer. The void tore open. The Sara emerged from the wound in reality like a nightmare given form. Her scales burned with inner fire. Her wings spread across the stars. Her eyes fixed on the Council fleet with hatred that had accumulated over centuries of conflict. She did not come alone. Behind her, more dragons appeared. Her children, her warriors. 20 Vera brood vessels, each one a living weapon capable of destroying fleets by itself. They spread across the darkness like a swarm of beautiful, terrible death. And at the center of the formation, leading them all, was a ship that no one in the Council fleet had ever seen before. It was smaller than the dragons, but moved with impossible speed. Its hull combined organic Vera technology with human engineering, creating something new, something faster and more maneuverable than anything the galaxy had produced. At its controls sat Dohwan, the tribute child, the son of the Sara, the bridge between two species that should never have been allies. "All Council vessels." Dohwan's voice broadcast across every frequency. "This is your only warning. Withdraw now, and you will live. Continue toward human space, and you will burn." Admiral Torvik stared at his view screen in disbelief. Dragons. The Vara themselves, standing between his fleet and its prey. "This is impossible," he said. "The dragons do not protect other species. They do not form alliances." "Admiral," one of his officers said nervously, "our readings show that these are the Sara's personal forces. Her own children. Why would she bring them here?" Torvik had no answer, but he refused to retreat. He had his orders. The Council had decided that humanity must die, and the Council's decisions were law. "All ships," he commanded, "open fire on the dragon formation. We outnumber them 15 to 1. We will overwhelm them." The Council fleet unleashed its weapons, plasma beams, antimatter missiles, gravity bombs, enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds. The attack struck the dragon formation like a storm of destruction. The Zara laughed. Her scales absorbed the energy. Her children shrugged off the impacts. Vera bodies had evolved in the hearts of dying stars. They swam through solar flares for amusement. The weapons of lesser species were nothing but warm light to them. And then they counterattacked. The Sara breath first. Her plasma breath was not like fire. It was more like a piece of the sun itself, condensed and directed with terrifying precision. The first line of council ships simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there. The next, they were expanding clouds of vapor. Her children joined in. 20 dragons, each breathing destruction. The council fleet's formation shattered. Ships that had been organized and confident moments before, now scattered in panic, trying to escape the ancient predators that tore through their ranks. But it was Dowan who truly surprised them. His hybrid ship danced through the battlefield like a blade of light. He had spent 20 years learning from dragons, understanding their technology, improving upon it with human creativity. His weapons were not as powerful as his mother's breath, but they were precise, deadly, designed for targets that his siblings would consider too small to notice. He destroyed shield generators. He crippled engine systems. He opened holes in armor that allowed his dragon siblings to finish what he started. He was the surgeon to their overwhelming force, the precision to their power. Admiral Torvik watched his fleet dying around him. 300 ships, the pride of the council, being torn apart by creatures they had always assumed were mindless beasts. He had underestimated the dragons. He had underestimated the human who led them. Retreat, he finally ordered. All ships, retreat immediately. But it was too late for many of them. The dragons were faster than any escape pod, more thorough than any cleanup crew. Ship after ship vanished into fire and ash, their crews never even seeing what killed them. The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, less than 50 council vessels remained, fleeing in every direction, their communications filled with screams and prayers and curses. Torvik's flagship was the last to fall. The Sara came for it personally. Her claws tore through the armored hull like it was paper. She ripped open the bridge and found Torvik cowering behind his command chair, his crystalline body flickering with terror. She could have killed him. She wanted to kill him. But Dowan's voice came through her mind, speaking in the way that only family could speak to each other. "Let him live, Mother. Let him tell the council what happened here." The Sara considered this. Then, slowly, she withdrew her claws. "Run," she told the Admiral. "Run back to your masters. Tell them what you witnessed today. Tell them that humanity is under my protection now. And tell them this message from my son." She projected Dowan's face onto every surviving screen in the fleet. 23 years ago, Dowan said, his voice calm despite the carnage around him. "You gave me to the dragons as a sacrifice. You expected me to die. Instead, I lived, I learned, and I remembered." Behind him, the wreckage of the council fleet drifted through space, burning, broken. Humanity is no longer alone. The Vura stand with us, not as conquerors, but as family. My mother adopted me when I was an infant. Her children became my siblings. I am human, but I am also dragon now. I am the bridge between our peoples. His expression hardened. "If you come for my species again, you will face us both. The soft creatures you thought were weak, and the ancient powers you always feared. Together, we are more than you can imagine. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, governments watched the recording in stunned silence. The Council had sent 300 ships to destroy humanity. 47 had returned, damaged and terrified. The dragons had defended humans. The Zara the Unburnt, the nightmare of civilizations, had called a human her son. Everything the galaxy thought it knew about the Vira was wrong. Everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. Admiral Torvik delivered his report to the council chambers in person. He was broken, physically and mentally. His crystalline body was cracked and dim. His voice trembled as he described what he had witnessed. When he finished, the council speaker spoke for the first time. This changes everything, the speaker said. No one disagreed. Far away, near the world of New Sol, Do-hwan stood on the hull of his sister Volcara, looking out at the stars. The Zara floated nearby, her massive body relaxed now that the battle was over. Her other children drifted in lazy patterns, playing among the debris of the fleet they had destroyed. "You did well today, my son," Isara said. Do-hwan nodded slowly. He felt no joy in the killing, no satisfaction in the destruction. He had done what was necessary to protect his people. "Both of them? What happens now?" he asked. "Now the galaxy learns a new truth," Isara replied. "They thought humanity was alone. They thought the Vera were monsters who could not love. They were wrong about both things." She moved closer, her great body curling protectively around the ship where he stood. "You have given me a gift, Do-hwan. 20 years ago, I was ancient and empty. I had power, but no purpose. I had children, but no hope. Then you arrived in your little pod, reaching out to touch my face. You reminded me that even the oldest creatures can change, can grow, can become something better than they were." Do-hwan reached up and placed his hand against her scales. Even through his protective suit, he could feel their warmth, their strength. "Thank you for not eating me," he said with a slight smile. The Zara made a sound that was almost a laugh. "I considered it, for about 3 seconds. Then you looked at me with those tiny eyes, and I knew I was defeated." She was the deadliest dragon in the galaxy, the terror of the stars, the nightmare of civilizations. And she had been defeated by an infant's curious gaze. Perhaps, Do-hwan thought, that was the most human thing of all. The power to change others simply by being present, by reaching out, by refusing to be afraid. The galaxy had tried to destroy humanity today. They had failed, and they would continue to fail as long as Do-hwan drew breath, because he was the son of 2 worlds now, human and dragon. 1 year after the Battle of New Sol, the galaxy was a different place. The Galactic Council still existed, but its power had changed. The species that had once voted to destroy humanity now sent ambassadors to human worlds, offering trade and treaties and apologies. They had learned the price of threatening the wrong people. They had learned what it meant to face dragonfire. Do-hwan stood at the center of this new galaxy. He was no longer just a tribute child or the son of the Zara. He was an ambassador, a negotiator, the only being in existence who could speak to both humans and dragons and make each side understand the other. His work was difficult. Humans were suspicious of the creatures who had terrorized them for centuries. Dragons were proud and ancient and did not easily accept equals among the lesser species. Every day brought new challenges, new conflicts, new moments where everything could fall apart. But Do-hwan had been trained by the best teacher in the universe. Patience, he had learned it from his mother. On this particular morning, he was on the council station, a massive structure that floated at the center of civilized space. Representatives from 100 species walked its halls, speaking in languages that filled the air with clicks and whistles and rumbles. Do-hwan moved through them easily, nodding to diplomats he recognized, stopping to exchange greetings with those who wanted to speak with him. Everyone wanted to speak with him now. "Ambassador Do-hwan," a voice called out. He turned to find a human woman approaching. She was old, her hair completely gray, her face lined with decades of worry and work. She wore a military uniform, though she had clearly retired long ago. It took him a moment to recognize her. But when he did, he felt his chest tighten. "Admiral Yuna," he said softly. She stopped a few feet away from him, her eyes searching his face, looking for something. Perhaps the baby she had sent away so many years ago. Perhaps forgiveness for what she had done. "I never thought I would see you again," she said. "I never thought you would survive." "I almost did not," Do-hwan replied. "If my mother had been any other dragon, I would be dead. Yuna flinched at the word mother. She had read the reports. She knew that the Sara had raised Dohwan as her own child. But hearing him call that monster his mother was still difficult. "I watched your message," she said. "The one you broadcast during the battle. You said you remember being sent away. You said you knew what the Council did to you." "I know everything," Dohwan confirmed. "The Zara never hid the truth from me. She told me about the pod, about the Council's decision, about the galaxy expecting me to die. She believed I deserved to know where I came from." Yuna's eyes filled with tears. "I am sorry. I had been sorry every day for 23 years. I should have refused. I should have found another way. I should have protected you." Dohwan was silent for a long moment. Then he stepped forward and did something that surprised them both. He hugged her. Yuna stiffened at first, shocked by the contact. But then she wrapped her arms around him and wept. All the guilt and shame she had carried for decades poured out of her in great, shaking sobs. "I forgive you," Dohwan said quietly. "You were given an impossible choice, and you made the only decision you could. You saved humanity by sacrificing one life. It was wrong, but I understand why you did it." He pulled back and looked at her with eyes that had seen things no human should have witnessed. "And because of what you did, I became something new. Something that could protect our people when no one else could. So in a strange way, Admiral, your sacrifice worked. Just not how anyone expected." Yuna wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. "You are a better person than I am. Better than most humans, I think." Dohwan smiled slightly. "I had good teachers, both human and dragon." Later that day, Dohwan attended the formal signing ceremony. The Council was recognizing humanity as a sovereign power, protected by treaty with the Vara. It was a document that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Now it was simply the new reality. The Sara herself attended the ceremony. Her presence required special arrangements. The Council chamber had to be opened to space itself, with atmospheric shields protecting the smaller species while she floated outside, visible through the transparent walls. Every representative in the chamber watched her nervously. This was the creature who had destroyed their fleets, the monster who had haunted their histories for thousands of years. She could kill them all with a single breath. Instead, she simply watched. And when Dohwan signed the treaty on behalf of both humans and dragons, she made a sound that rumbled through the station, like distant thunder. Pride. She was proud of her son. The ceremony ended. The representatives fled to their ships as quickly as dignity allowed. Within hours, the station was nearly empty. Dohwan stayed behind. He had one more journey to make today. Valkara carried him through space, her great wings pushing them toward a familiar destination. The journey took several hours, but Dohwan did not mind. He had learned to find peace in the void between stars. Finally, they arrived at the Sara's throne world, the planet of fire and ash and black stone where Dohwan had spent 20 years of his life. It looked exactly as he remembered it. Some things, he knew, did not change even over centuries. The Sara was waiting for him in her throne room. She lay coiled on her platform, her massive form relaxed, her eyes soft with something that might have been contentment. "My son," she greeted him. "You have returned." Dohwan walked to the base of her platform and looked up at her. Even after all these years, she still amazed him. The power she contained, the history she carried, the love she had somehow found for a creature she should have consumed. "I had to come back," he said. "Today marks 23 years since I arrived here. I wanted to spend the anniversary with you." The Zara made a pleased sound. "You remember the date?" "How could I forget? It is the day my life truly began." He climbed onto the platform and settled against her side. Her scales were warm beneath him, pulsing with the heat of an internal fire that would burn for thousands more years. Her heartbeat was slow and steady, a rhythm he had fallen asleep to countless times during his childhood. "You could rule them all, you know," the Tsar said after a while. "Humans, dragons, the entire galaxy bends toward you now. You are the bridge between worlds. You could be emperor of everything." Dowan shook his head. "I do not want to rule anyone. I just wanted to belong somewhere." The Tsar's rumble was almost a laugh. "Foolish hatchling. You have always belonged here. From the moment you reached out to touch my face, you were mine, and I was yours." She curled around him then, her massive body forming a protective shell, just as she had when he was an infant, just as she had done 1,000 times during his childhood, keeping him safe from a universe that had tried to throw him away. Dowan closed his eyes and let himself remember. The fear he should have felt but never did. The wonder of growing up among creatures larger than buildings. The love that had surprised them both. "Thank you, Mother," he whispered. "For what?" "For keeping me. For raising me. For teaching me that family is not about blood or species or logic. Family is about choice. You chose me when you did not have to. You loved me when the galaxy expected you to kill me. You gave me everything." The Tsar was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. "You gave me more, little one. You gave me hope. You showed me that even the oldest creatures can change. That even the most terrible monsters can become something better." She tightened her coils around him gently, a dragon's version of a hug. "I was ancient and empty before you came. I had conquered worlds but found no satisfaction. I have lived for 10,000 years but had no purpose. Then the galaxy sent me a tiny human child, expecting me to destroy him. Instead, he destroyed me. He broke down walls I had built over millennia. He made me feel things I had forgotten I could feel." A voice dropped to a whisper that shook the chamber. "You saved me, Dowan. You saved me from becoming nothing but a monster. You made me a mother again. And that is a gift worth more than all the stars in all the galaxies." They stayed like that for hours. A human and a dragon. A son and his mother. Two beings who should have been enemies, who should have been predator and prey, instead bound by something stronger than instinct or logic or the expectations of a terrified universe. The galaxy had tried to destroy humanity. They had failed. The galaxy had tried to use a human child as a sacrifice. They had failed. The galaxy had assumed that monsters could not love, that dragons could not care, that the deadliest creatures in existence could not find softness in their ancient hearts. They had failed most of all in that, because the Tsar the Unburnt, terror of civilizations, nightmare of the stars, had cradled a human infant like her own. And in doing so, she had changed the fate of two species. Dowan opened his eyes and looked up at the ceiling of obsidian and fire. Somewhere out there, humans were building new ships and exploring new worlds and looking toward a future they had once thought impossible. Somewhere out there, dragons were learning to see the lesser species as something more than prey. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was slowly, painfully, becoming a better place. And here, in a palace of black stone on a world of eternal fire, a mother held her son. Some things were simple. Some things were pure. Some things did not need explanation or justification or complicated philosophy.